Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the dismissive avoidance fears in the FA-DA relationship and some different strategies to communicate through these fears to the FA specifically if you are a dismissive avoidant. So we'll talk about some of these things at a high level. Keep in mind, if you want to go way deeper into the needs, the communication patterns, expectations, how to talk through things in general, when there's pain points, arguments, fights, whenever there are things we need to reprogram and you need tools for that, we have these really extensive live courses where I put these slides together. You can see the slides, you can go through the course, and we have them right now sitting in our webinar library inside of PDS. So if you want to check out and join for free, you can click the link below for 7 days to get free access. And it will take you into the school. When you go and you can click webinar library, you'll see all of the different courses from FA, FA-DA, DAAP, and so on. And you can get access to all this stuff in a lot more detail than everything we'll go through. It's sort of like a high level here today. So first and foremost, the major DA fears in the relationship with a fearful avoidant are they fear losing the connection to the fearful avoidant. Often DAs do get like deep childhood unmet needs met through the fearful avoidant relationship. And one of these is like the presence that the fearful avoidant brings, the care, the supportiveness. They're really like showing up and wanting to sort of like give and notice what the DA is going through and really bring that support to their life. And so they fear losing that. And they often fear losing the FA. And this is because differently from the relationship with the AP, the FA does have that really strong avoidance side. So when it comes online, I always say like the DA is more pervasively avoidant, but the FA, when they're triggered, is more intensely avoidant. And they can shut down for much stronger, much more intensely, become much more cold, really shut off, really want to push away harder, but for shorter periods of time and definitely less frequently than the DA. So we'll see these different dynamics where sometimes the FA can express a more extreme degree of avoidance than the DA. And in those cases, that can actually trigger the DA to feel a little bit of a fear of loss or fear of being disconnected. Now, the DA also fears being trapped, pressured, having a lot of like expectation put on them from the FA, especially when the FA says like, oh, I did these things, and so you should do this sort of stuff, which can show up in this relationship dynamic sometimes. And also, they definitely really fear being criticized and made to feel defective. So shamed, criticized, these sorts of things definitely trigger that I am defective core wound for the DA. And it can be really challenging. DA is also in this dynamic fear being found out sort of thing as being shameful, defective, or not good enough, which is part of why you see DAs a lot of the time, like create a lot of buffers in their space. It's sort of like wanting to keep everybody at an arm's length and not let them into their personal home or not let them see their personal space too much or personal habits or how they spend their personal time. Like, and it's not because the things the DA does are so shameful at all. It's usually because they've judged themselves as being that way, because it's a subconscious comfort zone that came out of usually trauma from being neglected to a certain degree in childhood. And then they magnify these things. So like everybody has like some form of creature comfort, or at least the vast majority of people do, right? Whether it's like laying in your bed all the time, or whether it's like watching TV shows for too long, whatever. Everybody has some way of coping, big or small, when they are having a hard time or when they're burnt out or whatever it might be. So while that may be a normal thing, a secure person might be like, oh, like I'm just needing some time to like lay in my bed and take it easy. And they might like embrace it and accept it. A dismissive avoidant would look at that as being like, oh, this is so shameful. I'm defective. Like, this is shameful. I can't let anybody see this because they'll in fact find out that I am shameful and have these embarrassing habits. And, and so it's not like that they're so shameful. It's that they just believe that they are at a deep subconscious level because of that core wound association. And then when it's triggered, or if there's a potential for it being triggered, somebody seeing these things about them that are shameful, quote unquote, that's when that's why they'll keep people at bay and like really buffer people out the vast majority of the time. That, and they often just like to focus on themselves in order to re-regulate, and can feel a little bit drained by having other people around or feeling like they have to entertain somebody else and so on. So they'll definitely fear that. They will fear being consumed by the emotional roller coaster, especially once this relationship dynamic goes on. Like in the dating stage, FA is usually like do great and they don't have a lot of their triggers come up. And then once there's a commitment made, now some of those big commitment fears, trust wounds can show up. And then this is when the volatility may begin. And this is going to be what triggers the dismissive avoidance I am unsafe core wound. And they really do not like conflict, especially early on in relationships. Like they often think like, hey, this conflict, if we see this a couple times, the relationship must be on its way out. And so that will be a big thing. Sometimes they'll also feel helpless to give the FA what they need. Sometimes it's because the FA is not consistently seeing their needs through, or sometimes it's because they're not communicating their needs clearly enough and in a practical enough way that's tangible. So sometimes the FA doesn't say like, I need support and it looks like X, Y, Z. And so the DA thinks, oh, support, you want, words of affirmation, and the FA really needed support through physical affection or through acts of service or some kind of other love language even, that then the DA tries and the FA doesn't receive it because they were wanting something else. They didn't communicate it. And then the FA feels frustrated, like their needs aren't met. The DA feels like they're trying and it's never enough. And then you can get into this kind of like really challenging dynamic. And so that can really trigger the DA. And sometimes they can feel triggered that like their need for independence is misunderstood. And also things like, feeling like their need to warm up more slowly in a relationship is misunderstood. Sometimes I'll see that the DA let's say the DA and FA get into an argument. Sometimes I'll see, for example, the DA needs space. The FA get triggered by that and expect the DA to warm up more quickly, especially if the actions of the dismissive avoidant was something that hurt them to begin with. And then they express it in a way that was critical and that caused the DA to need space. And then the FA usually warms up faster because they have the anxious side. And then all of a sudden, you'll often see that the FA's warmed up faster because they have the anxious side. Then they go back to reapproach the DA who's still shut down. And then the FA then feels rejected. So they feel like, oh, you hurt me first. And then when I went back to fix it, you rejected me. But really it's just that the DA usually is hurt, holds on to things, takes longer to warm back up. And it can just create kind of a vicious cycle in this dynamic. So I feel like I've already said so much in this video and there's so much more in the course. I'm going to talk in a separate video about how to communicate as the DA to the FA at a high level. And then these are just some themes. There's so many more, but basically in the course, you'll actually see the steps, the tools, the strategies, all that kind of stuff with the PowerPoint, all the info. And it will just give you insight into what's happening so you can understand each other better and then what to do and how to approach the situation so that you can have a relationship that works and gets out of the power struggle and you can feel thriving and you're connected again. So check out that course, go into our webinar library, check it out. You can use the link below to sign up for free for 7 days. And I hope you enjoy, and I will see you in the next video.